I had one of my viewers ask me, "Hey Joe, show me how to read a tape measure." So I've got a tape measure here, and I'm going to go over a little bit about how to read a tape measure so that you can be more comfortable reading and understanding measurements on a tape measure. You want to learn how to do that? Stick around. Let's take a look at this now. I'm in between 8 and 9 inches on the tape measure, okay? Now every one of these little lines is a 1/16 of an inch between the 8 and the 9. So if you count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There's actually 15. And then the next one is the 9, so that would be 16. So most tape measures are broken up into 1/16 of an inch. So if I were to tell you right there, that first one right there, that would be 8 and a 1/16 of an inch. Well, if you go up to the middle, you know 8 is half a 16. So that you could say 8 and 8/16, but nobody does that because that's a half. See, everything's broken up differently. Every single one of those lines is a 1/16. Okay, but then, and all the little ones, the little small ones, those are the ones you read in 1/16 of an inch. Now see, the next increment, see this line here is a little bit longer than that, than the 1/16. Okay, and those are eighths, and you can break it up that way. So every other line is an 1/8 of an inch. But you'll also see that this line is the same length as that line, and that one, and that one. Do you see that? So when you read and those are 1/8 of an inch increments. But then it's split up in quarters too. So here's a quarter, and there's a quarter. This is 2 quarters, but that's a half. So when you're reading this, if I were to say right there, that would be 8 and 1/8 of an inch. If I go to there, that's 8 and 3/8. You wouldn't go, this line here, you wouldn't go 8 and 2/8 because 2/8 is a quarter. So you would say a quarter. Those and so on quarter increments, you would go 8 1/4, 8 3/4. This is 8 1/2. You wouldn't go 8 2/4. So see, you've got 1/16 measurements, increments, and 1/8 inch increments, 1/4 inch increments, 1/2 inch increments. So all of that, you put it all together. You know, if I say right there, that's 8 1/2, but if I hold it right there, you know that's 1/16 less than 8 1/2. So that would be 7/16 because 8/16 would be a half. And if you get mixed up with that, you can always count these back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that would be 8/16, or 8 and 7/16. Sorry about that. Do you see? It's going to take a while to get used to, but that's how most tape measures are marked that way. So right there, 8 3/4, and that's 8 7/8. Okay, and the eighths, 7/8 because 8/8 is an inch. 4/4 is an inch. 16/16 is an inch. Do you see how that kind of breaks down? So here's 1/8, 2/8 is a quarter, 3/8 is just 3/8, 4/8 is a 1/2 inch, 5/8 you would say 5/8, 6/8 you wouldn't say 6/8, you'd say 3/4, 7/8 you'd say 7/8. So each one of these smaller lines, just a little bit longer than the 16th, this next line, you read those out as eighths. So if you come up to here, and you would go 1, 2, 3/8. So on the tape, you got 1/8 you would read, 3/8, 5/8, 7/8. On the quarters, you'd read 8 1/4, 8 3/4. This longer line here is halfway between 8 and 9, so that's a 1/2 inch. This is 3/4 of the way between an inch, so that's 3/4. That's a 1/4 of the way between an inch, and that is read 1/4. And so that's how you read a tape measure. If you look at the 9, it's just below the 9, you know that's 15/16. And a lot of times, if I would be reading that and calling out a measurement, I would say 8 and 15/16. Or I would say, it's a short 9 inches. And if I tell somebody, anytime I say a short, that means 15/16. Or if I say a long 9 inches, that would be, what would that be? I'm asking you. 9 1/16. You know, it's just different ways how you want to read something. Okay? Let's read a few more measurements here, shall we? 8 3/8. 8 3/4. 8 13/16, because I know 12/16 is 3/4, so 13/16 is the next line. So on the 16th, you might have to think about it a little bit. You know what I mean? And the 16th, you're just going to read those small little points. Those are the 16th marks. So if I hold it right there, you go, okay, what is that? If you have to start at 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 8 5/16. 8 7/16. 9/16. 11/16. 13/16. 15/16. And you're not going to read 8/16. Somebody would laugh you out of town if you said 8 8/16, being so proud of you because you read it right. You don't say that. You would say 8 1/2. Okay? 8 1/4. 8 1/8. 8 5/8 right there. 9 inches. 9 1/16. 9 1/8. You getting the point here? That's how you read your tape measure. So if I'm going to hold it right there, what is that? That's 8 7/16, because 8 8/16 is a half, and you wouldn't say that, and you would go back 1 from 8 would be 8 7/16. And if you got a question, you can count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7/16. So you're going to have to just be mindful of the 16ths, the 1/8 inches, the 1/4 inches, the 1/2 inch, the 3/4, and that's how you're going to get by reading the tape measure.